Tom, how you doing this week?
I'm good. Weather's a bit terrible this week, but I'm doing good. How are you?
Terrible. What do you mean terrible?
Well, I say this week it's been quite sunny. Temperature's been about between say about 19 to about 24, and then today it's just absolutely lashing it down. Usually you can see the North Shore Mountains from my window, but today you can't see anything. It's just completely like foggy and rainy and wet. Not ideal.
You know what? In opposition to that, the UK weather is still lovely.
I've actually heard the contrary to that. I've heard that you've had a storm.
No.
So what have you done this week?
Um, Before we get onto that, I don't know if there's been a storm or not, but no, the weather's been really good. What have I done this week? I've done two things actually. What's going to lead us on to the main topic of our episode, but the first thing that I did was, and this will get onto the topic of one of the major differences in living in the UK versus living in North America, like you do, is what was for me up in Greater Manchester to drive down to Bedfordshire. Was quite the drive. It's just over 3 hours. It took going down the M6, going through the M6 toll. So I had to be there for 9:30 a.m. But it wasn't for filming. Something else that I've been asked to do, and I actually quite enjoyed it, was to deliver almost like a presentation slash teaching on the features of the camera, really. But especially it was with a heightened focus on the features of how to film with a mobile phone. So that's in itself quite an interesting topic. Should you be using a mobile phone for professional shoots? But yes, I went down there, delivered that, got back in the car, had a bit of food, zipped back up the road to get back home that evening, another 3 hours the other way to get back to Greater Manchester. But no doubt for you, a 3 hour drive or a 6 hour round trip isn't a big deal anymore.
Well, that's interesting because in the same weekend that you were doing that, I drove a total of 23 hours in the car. That was there and
Oh,
back
wow.
to northern BC. But just before I get into that, interesting, you've been down to Bedford with work, but not for filming. I've also driven down to Bedford a few times with work, but not for filming, because I used to work for a car dealership company, and they asked me if I was free one day to go and drive down and pick up a car and drive it back. And that's the only time I've been to Bedford, was to go down and do that. So I've also done that drive, and I can attest to how boring it is. It's not a fun drive, is it, on the M6, especially when you get to I think there's like a 20-mile stretch around Birmingham where the road goes to 50, and it's the most awful slog, that bit. And yeah, it's not great. But anyway, I drove to a place called McBride, which is in northern BC, quite close to the Alberta border, and it's near Jasper. If anyone knows Jasper National Park, quite a famous national park. It's not far from there by Mount Robson. And it took me going there. It took about 12 hours. We stopped a couple of times. I went with a friend. He helped me stay awake in the car because we drove out on the Friday and then drove back to Vancouver on the Sunday. So we only had one day to shoot the wedding. And what I did was I arranged real estate shoots along the way as I was going up there and as I was coming back. So I shot a few properties going there and making it back. So it just makes the trip a little bit more economical while you're out there. But yeah, it's a long drive, but it doesn't feel too long because of all the mountains and the snow and the stopping for real estate shoots and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the day after the wedding, we did I think it was it ended up being like 11, 12 hours the wedding day. Then I had to go to bed I finished the wedding, got into the motel, had a shower and went straight to sleep for 9 o'clock because I got up for 4 o'clock in the morning, and we had to do a 6 hour drive to a place called Vernon, which is 6 hours from McBride, where I shot some real estate stuff, and I had to get there for 11 in the morning. So it's been a very hectic week with weddings and real estate. But yeah. So how did you find delivering that presentation? What did you get from it?
First, move on to that. What was the longest you did in one go driving?
The longest stretch was 6 hours.
Yeah, that's good going. That's literally my entire trip there and back in one going, in one drive.
Yeah, I didn't have any music as well because the car that I actually rented needed an aux cable and I didn't have one. And we went into Walmart to buy one and they were $29, and I refused to pay that for an aux cable. So me and my friend, we drove all the way there and all the way back with like no radio, no music, because there was no service out there. You can't get like like there's no point in tuning in a radio because your service drops in and out so often that it's just more annoying than anything. So we had to actually talk to each other for the whole 23 hours that we were out there, and it actually wasn't that bad.
Yeah, you'd think that you kind of lose topics to talk about after, like, say, hour 6.
Oh no, we had many debates. One of the major ones was whether humanity would survive like a Yellowstone eruption. He was arguing that we wouldn't, and I argued that we would. So that took up quite a bit of time. It was just random things like that. We talked about the job, what I was doing, because he's coming out from a different perspective because he's not into filmmaking or anything like that at all. He just came to go and see some cool places while I went and did my work. So he was asking me a lot of questions about work and how I do things and stuff like that. And I thought it was quite interesting. And it made me think a lot about what we talk in this podcast and stuff, and how we tend to be wrapped up in our own little world with filmmaking, where we don't speak to that many people who are outside of that bubble. You know what I mean? Apart from clients, say, for example, like I speak to my wife, Emily, about it, but she's sort of in that world because I'm in that world, if that makes sense, even though she doesn't do the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's constantly surrounded and she'll pick up things by osmosis about what you're saying, or if she's around when this podcast is recorded, and she'll pick up some of the lingo and understand some of the triumphs, but also some of the failures of what we experience along the way. Yeah, it's so different. Obviously, if there's anyone who listens to this from North America and they think like 3 hours nothing. But then obviously if you're from the UK, especially the roads over here, no doubt they're a little bit different. I've never drove in Canada, so you can talk on that more than I can. But like you said, there's just patches. I did take the toll, and again, I'm from the north, so I do feel things in the pocket, even though I'm claiming back on expenses. But it's $9.95 for one way on the toll now. To me, that's quite expensive to drive on the road.
Yeah, that is, because it's only like it only saves like half an hour, doesn't it? That toll.
It depends. Again, it depends on what time of day it is and what the traffic's like on whatever the M6 that's going through Birmingham. It can be a nightmare. It can slow you down by 45 minutes. But then obviously it impacts your whole journey. So you think, okay, I better take the toll because I need to be. It's very important, no matter what you're doing, to be on time and be punctual. And I like to be there a little bit beforehand so I can set up filming or doing what I was doing on a delivery on cameras and whatnot, to get there early to overcome any potential technical issues and find out what room you're going to be in, and to meet the other people and to have that little bit of conversation before it begins. So yeah, I did it. I took the toll, and then when I was coming back, because it was like rush hour around there seems to go from 5 to 8, and I was smack in the middle of that. So when I was driving back up the road, so I'm just going to take it, and I know it's best part of 10, but I just thought, I'll just do it. But yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it, and I've been doing that. And the other thing, which obviously is going to lead us on to our main topic today, is I've shot 2 different real estate. I've done something else as well. I'll talk about it later on. But for the main part, for the meat of what we're going to talk about today, I shot 2 different real estate agent videos for 2 completely different companies. And it'd be good today if we can talk about how we both approach it. We might approach it differently. We can talk about our setup, what equipment we use, and how we approach a real estate shoot, and also if we found any differences between shooting for one company to another company. They might have different requests. They might like it done in a particular way, or they might actually how they interact with the videographer differently, which could enhance, or it could inhibit what you're actually trying to do. So, what about yourself? It's put it this way, it's provided quite a lot of conversation to talk to you about on this podcast about what I've gone through over the last week with real estate. So firstly, tell me about yours. What kind of property did you shoot, and how did you go about it? Then I can elaborate on mine.
So this week I've been shooting houses. I do a mix of commercial real estate and houses, but this and some condos. But this house that I mainly want to talk about, there was 2, but they're very similar, so I'm just going to talk about one. So it's in a place called Lake Country near Vernon or Kelowna, BC. It's about a 4-hour drive from here, and it's what I find, you've got to look into with different locations is the actual market and who's buying these houses and stuff, and who you appealing to with these houses. Say I would shoot properties differently depending on, say, the architecture, who it's marketed towards. Is it a younger audience who's going to buy this? Is it more like an e-commerce guy who's made millions and he's only like 23 who's buying this house, or is it a more older couple who want more slower shots and stuff, and it's less about style? So the house that I was shooting was it was quite an old house for Vancouver. It was like 1990s, 1970s, like between that kind of era. So I used a lot more slow kind of moving shots, and I trimmed down the gimbal movements a bit more, so it's a little bit slower. And what I like to do is when I approach a house is I go in with a wide lens on. I use a 17mm lens, and I go around and shoot all the main rooms. I'll ask the realtor to walk me through the house first and point out any of the details and stuff, and see where things are, what are the main selling points, what have we found a lot of interest with the house, like say if there's a pool or if there's a big open area or anything that they want to mention. I'll shoot the main rooms a couple of times and get loads of different angles, and then master bedroom I'll get like 2 or 3 shots, and then if we're doing like other bedrooms I might get 1 shot of each one of those, and then I'll stick like an 85mm on. I'll go around, do details, I'll turn taps on, film that stuff, get some, like little bits that they've highlighted, and then after that I'll go around with the drone, and that's the bare bones of what I do. Does your approach differ from that?
No, it's quite similar. Firstly, what about your frame rates?
I've tried a few different things. I never shoot 24. I did that for one, but you just don't have enough room to maneuver if you do want to slow stuff down. I know a lot of people are interested in speed ramps at the minute. I don't use them that much, but they do have a place for some things. So what I'll tend to do is I'll shoot everything in 30, and then for the main rooms I'll shoot in 60. And I'll slow that down. So I'll get the same shot in 30 and the same shot in 60, and then I can decide later if I want to do that. But I won't change it. I won't do that for every room. 30 is the main one that I'll stick at. Are you the same?
A little bit different. Firstly, just winding back, I think the first point of contention or understanding is what is my position within relationship to the people who run the company. To elaborate, I've shot with 2 different companies this week. One, they're very hands-on. I feel micromanaged. I don't feel that they want me in for any kind of creativity. I don't think they necessarily want my input. It's debatable whether that's a good or a bad thing. I think they want me to shoot exactly what they want. To the point where it's, from my perspective, it's not as enjoyable, because the owner of the company will actually come out with me and at times stand behind the camera as I'm shooting, telling me what to do. So in essence, I'm being directed. So I'm very much a cameraman rather than any level of creative director or creative input. The interesting thing with that is the individual, they can't actually do the job of a videographer or cameraman, but yet they're the one telling me how things should be and how things should be shot, and they're quite insistent on it looking like other people's real estate on examples, not just borrowing ideas, but almost like exactly the same. I understand it. They know exactly what they want. They want a particular look for their brand. From my perspective, I've found it. It's not been enjoyable. I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to say it as it is. It's not an enjoyable process. In the post-production phase, I will cut it accordingly and do what I can. It might include speed ramps or whatever it might want. But quite often I am finding, initially it was drip-fed feedback, and I advised them not to do it that way. It's counterproductive, but to list everything they want. But some things that they want changing back go against initially what they wanted, and it's stifling. In addition to that, with them, we've got a retainer set up, which is X amount of money for X amount of hours. They've gone over the hours now, because this is relatively a new relationship. I've allowed it to go over, to try and work with them more, to get the reps in, to understand exactly what they want. Whether it's just I'm not a good match for them, But currently, I'm not feeling like I love that level of process and the way things are done with them. It's it's not me. If they wanted somebody who's just to basically just to operate the camera to capture the shots what they want to capture, no level of input creativity, literally hold the camera, make sure it's framed, make sure everything's exposed correctly, then I think something like that would suit them better. That's not me. Whereas when I worked with a second company, they were very much, look, we want your input, like what you can do. We're not creatives like that. You're the guy who knows what he's doing in that perspective. Go out there, shoot the property how you want the property. They gave me some guidelines. It wasn't completely a blank page. They showed trust with me, and then it went really well. I was the one who met up with the vendor, the person who owned the house, and then I went round it, I shot it, and everything's gone really well. So I guess before you even begin, it's like, what is my role with this? Am I just a cameraman, or am I somebody who's got creative input in how this video should look?
I think a good way to think about it is if you compare it to the other people who are working on the house, say for example like a builder coming in or an electrician coming in, the person who owns the house and is marketing the house might have their idea of what way it needs to be built, and they can obviously come in and fill the brief with what they want, but then it's the builder's job to come in and say this is feasible, or this doesn't work, or this won't create this flow, or they're the expert in that field. And the person who's managing the property or owns the property, they're like almost like the director of the property, and they've got to direct the other services to work in tandem with each other. And by not letting you do what you say as an expert in that field, because these people might have an idea of what looks good. It's like literacy, the way I think of filmmaking. It's everyone can read, but it takes a certain kind of person to be able to write it and write in the language of filmmaking. So they don't know necessarily that certain shots need to work together. Say, for example, like, the 30-degree rule. If you're not changing your camera angle 30 degrees to the next shot, it looks weird. It looks more like a YouTube video where you're punching in or punching out. They don't necessarily understand that. So it takes our knowledge and our experience to formulate their ideas into sort of like a prism that makes it into the finished piece. And by not allowing you to do that, they're going to create issues for themselves that they'll have problems with you, but they won't realize that it was their fault, if that makes sense, because they've just directed you completely.
Yeah, that's literally as it is. I wouldn't get a decorator in my house who put wallpaper up and stand over them and tell them how to put that wallpaper on it. I could say this is the wallpaper. This is what I've chosen, what I want to go on the wall. So I guess it's just about, again, it might be about personalities, it might be about suitability, but it's very stifling working like that. I've not actually felt like this on a project for a long time, where I felt so stifled to the point where when I submit something for review, I don't feel anxiety, it's not to that extent, but I'm anticipating the worst.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating, yeah, and when it comes back as well, it's not, there's not, hey, how you doing kind of thing. Look, we just need a few things, but it's not like that. It's boom, this is this is that, this is that. Things that you learn in business along the way is there's an end goal. That's what you want to get to, the end goal, and you want to make sure that it is the best possible product that you want. So I asked myself how am I going to get to this end goal when I'm working with other people, and it's the better the communication, cooperation, the way I deal with people will all lead to me to get to the best possible outcome, because I'll get people to work with me on the same team with how I deal with them and knowing what they need at that given time. But the amount of it, yeah, the way it is, it's just I certainly wouldn't call myself a snowflake, but after a bit, it's almost like, look, I wouldn't want to work out an hourly rate anymore, because no doubt it doesn't work out like I'm getting paid very much because of how many extra I've done over the hours for them. I've not got any really creative input, and it's a whole host of negativity rather than trying to work together on them. And even though I'm constantly striving, I don't shoot how I would shoot it. I'm shooting for what they want. And then when I read through the feedback, this sounds so negative today, but let's just say it as it is. And when I read through the feedback, some of it, it's like, that's not going to work. You can't put that shot next to that shot like you want. You don't really know how things flow. And you've said certain things, and I completely disagree with it. I'm going to have to go back to them. I'm going to have to stand my ground and say, look, I disagree with that. This is the way it is. And, if this, to be honest, if this means parting way early on the retainer, and so be it. So we can both move on. But if it doesn't improve quick, fast, I will, I'll let it be known that I don't think it's working.
So what I'm interested in is, how do you handle that situation? What way do you speak to them about it? Do you speak to them over the phone? Can you do it over email? What's the best way to communicate those ideas that you're having and those disagreements?
It depends on the situation and how it is. I think firstly, if there's any kind of strong emotion involved, it's good to just take a minute. You can't. No doubt you've been annoyed on different shoots yourself. If you've been annoyed with a client, it's part of life, and that's not just for our industry. That can be for any industry where you're annoyed with somebody for what it might be, and you want to tell them where to go. You want to tell them where to stick it, but that's not professional. It's not the right thing to do, and it's not going to help the situation. If anything, it can escalate it. So I think the first thing is, I always think, stick to facts the best you possibly can. It's a creative process, so at times it's just a matter of opinion what looks better. There's no necessarily right or wrong, but stick to what the facts from what you believe. Does that shot go with that shot? Well, no, because of this. It's just a fact. It won't look right. And then just in a nice, positive, pleasant way. If you can do it over the phone or in person, that's even better, because they can understand tone. Because I find if it's an email or if it's a text message, sometimes people can read into it too much, and
To be a
you
bit
might
cold.
not be. Yeah. They might not think. They might think you're being aggressive or angry, and they might then come at you. But the truth is, you're not. You're actually trying to be kind of calm. But I will say this: if you are communicating via email or text, but primarily through email, you've got an evidence trail. And I would never want it to get to that, he said this, she said this, but sometimes it's good to know that you've upheld your end of the agreement. You've done what you were meant to do. And like in this case, other cases, even gone beyond. So it's good sometimes that it's in writing, it's in an email between the two people. So if it gets to anything where they want to withhold payment or they want to take it down any particular avenue, you can say, that's up to you, but it's all in black and white.
I think it's good to, something I like to do is to reassess and reaffirm to them that we all have a stake in this. We all want this project to do well. And obviously we only take on projects that we believe in and we want to be a part of, because this is what we do. If you wanted to go and make a lot more money doing something else, then you would do something else, wouldn't you? But we're in this because we do genuinely love doing it, and we have an interest in helping the clients succeed and having we have their best interests at heart, whilst also wanting a really good film to be made for them, or promotional film, or whatever it is. So it's always good to reaffirm that to them and say, we're all on the same side here. We just have a different vision on how we're going to get there. And from my professional opinion, I think this is the best way to go because of X, Y, and Z. And I do agree with you. It's definitely better to get on Zoom or get on a call or meet in person and discuss these things than over text. But what I do like to do after we have some kind of meeting like that is I'll summarize all of my points and all of their points and what the plan of action is, or the result of the meeting is, in an email afterwards, just to clear yourself, just to set those expectations, and always have like a contract in place just that says, this is what we're doing, this is what I'm responsible for, this is what you're responsible for. And if any of us deviate from the contract, well, we clearly deviated from the contract, and it's all there in evidence, in writing it, if it does for whatever reason go to legal or anything like that. So it's just good to cover your bases on that. On that note though, with people being very controlling, I've experienced that a couple of times in weddings, but I've never had that with realtors or real estate. I've never actually done a real estate shoot where I've had someone who's been particularly picky. A lot of them are just happy to leave it to me, and I'm glad of that, because I have experienced it in weddings, and it is a frustrating situation to be in, because you are a pair of hands that operates the camera. They say we want it this way and you do it this way, and there's no kind of creativity in it, and it's just like you work in an ordinary job where you don't need any kind of, like, all you need to know is ISO, aperture and movement. You know what I mean? So that is very frustrating, and I would I would try and look for anyone out there, I would look for the warning signs of this. And I don't know if you retroactively looked back on any communications with them and thought, this is a red flag now that I know to look for in the future.
I think early on there was slight indications of how it might be, but I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I always say to myself, look, just give it time. You don't know yet. Just give it time and see how things play out, because you might be pleasantly surprised. But you don't want to be jaded and think, all right, okay, I've seen this before. I've seen this kind of personality before. The way they're dealing with things, I'm going to walk away now, because you don't always know how it's going to play out, or at least you hope it doesn't play out like it might do, or ironically as how it is in my current situation. But everything like you said, I agree with it. It's the same kind of thing. If you can speak to somebody and hash it out in that way, good, do it. But try and get that. Not because I expect anything ever to go to the point where it's a legal issue. I don't think it'll ever get to that. At least I hope it doesn't on any level for anyone. But it's just good to reiterate what we're accountable for and what our expectations are. Also, as well, I hate to say it, there are people out there intentionally or unintentionally, they will want more from you than what's been agreed.
Yeah, definitely.
And at times it's difficult to say no, because you want to please the client. You want to be in a position where if there's any more work, it comes to you. You want to foster good relationships. So you might go above and beyond what's in that contract or the expectations. This company, for example, now over hours. I'm well within my rights to say, you're over hours now, so it's going to have to stop, and we can resume it the following month, which isn't far away anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just in my personality. It's like, no, let's get it done. Let's work together. Let's see what we can do. Would they offer that same flexibility to me? I don't know.
I think you have to assess on how much do you want to retain this client, because obviously they're going to appreciate, and you might get some good word of mouth from you doing a little bit of overtime for free and just like letting things slip a little bit with stuff like that. I have a rule with weddings. I don't charge overtime unless we go half an hour over. So say if I'm doing a 10-hour day, I'm not going to start charging overtime until we get to after 10:30. So I think that's like a good rule of thumb. I don't just stand around and like wait until the minute after. And I do this with packages as well. If anyone's asking me about whether they should go for the higher package or the lower package or whatever, I will be honest with them and say, I recommend you go for this. It's not just me trying to upsell them on stuff, because I do think retaining that relationship with a good client is really important for the longevity of your business, because word of mouth is everything in this game, and you've got to have a good rep. But I think there is a line, and it's hard to define that line on where you should draw it and see whether, how many hours is it that you've been doing over for them?
It worked out that it was going to be 11 a month, right? And I'd say now it's probably edging towards 20.
Yes, yeah, I would say that's definitely over the line now, because that's near enough double what you should be doing. So
it is, and from their point of view is because it's not right in the first place. The tweaks are coming to get it right, where they can't blow hours on me fixing it up over and over again. I don't quite see it like that.
Yeah, it's obviously it's difficult, isn't it? Because from your perspective, it's their tweaks from the start that have led to these issues. So I think I had a similar situation with a wedding last year where a friend had referred me, another videographer friend of mine, he'd referred me to a couple. He couldn't shoot their wedding because it was his baby was being born around then. And they were asking me all kinds of questions about my business and stuff, and these were all really like red flags. Like, people don't usually want to know the ins and outs of like what way your company's structured and stuff like that. And she got on to talking about the actual wedding day, and she wanted like specific shots, and she wanted me to stand in specific positions and stuff. And from my own experience, these things never pan out the way that you think they're going to pan out, because the wedding day never goes to plan. Something always changes. And then she got onto payments, and industry standard for North America and Europe is that you are paid before you turn up at the wedding. There's no payments after the wedding. It's all upfront before you turn up. And she wanted to do 50% before, then 10% after the wedding, and then the remaining 40% once the files were delivered. And I just said, no, I don't think we're a good fit, and we need to just not get involved with this because I've dealt with some clients like that in the past, and it's just too much of a strain on your business. And like I've sat there before and I've spoke to Emily about it, and I've been visibly stressed about these things because it does feel like some people are trying to take you to town over things, and they're trying to get as much as they can out of you, and those are the types of clients that you want to try and avoid working with, I think. So I would either try and repair the relationship and set the boundaries of the contract, or I'd cut it and try and allocate that time to someone else.
Yeah, it is. It's difficult at times when you think, you know what, there's a lot of potential in this relationship. You know, initially you think it's an older company that's been recently bought out, and they're trying to rebrand and they're trying to push themselves in the right direction. And the initial conversations was very much about how we can push it in the right direction. So it was quite a nice challenge within that strand of videography. So I was quite excited about getting on board with them. But as it transpired, the amount of control and micromanagement on me, and then me knowing I don't necessarily agree with what's going on in the first place, then it coming back on me. Again, they might have a different opinion, and that just goes to show that the relationship isn't necessarily working. But I have worked with other estate agents, real estates before, and they all have a different approach. And ironically, in the same week, it did, again, for me, it felt like a breath of fresh air to them say, give me some kind of bullet point instructions, some guidelines, then off you go. We want somebody who can come in and create for us. And you know what? Then if it doesn't turn out as they wanted it to, then so be it. I don't feel the same way, because I think, you know what? They gave me the opportunity to see what I could do. And I take it more on the chin, because that was my effort. That was me.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't me being controlled or told how to point the camera, because the person who's directing it is very much trying to get that particular video to almost perfectly mirror something they've seen on Instagram. And it's just in comparison. But I anticipate within this week or next week that I'm going to draw it to a resolution one way or another. If it can be resurrected in some way, then good. But on the same time, if it's not, I won't lose any sleep over it.
It'll be interesting to see how that pans out over the next week. But
yeah, definitely.
One thing I did want to discuss was the differences in the real estate market and real estate videography in North America compared to the UK, because I've done a bit of both now. I'd say I've got a lot more experience over here than back home, because I only dabbled with it a little bit at home, and it was I shot a lot of constructions at home, not really finished houses. I did a couple, but not that many. And I found over at home it's a lot more about the company, the letting agent themselves, whereas over here it's just as much as about the realtor as it is about the house and stuff. Like, a lot of them bring dogs with them to shoots, and they have the dogs with them, and they talk about the dog, and they're trying to sell themselves. And I've done a few real estate shoots where we go to like local restaurants in the area that they're trying to sell in, and they'll eat at local restaurants and talk about them and try and like network with them. Like, there was a woman who was doing she was buying gift baskets from a local vendor and then giving them to people who bought houses with her once they bought the houses, stuff like a moving gift. And it's sort of like, it's a bit of advertising for them, if that makes sense. So I see a lot more innovation in that aspect over here than in the UK. But I haven't lived in the UK for 18 months now, so I don't know if it's changed there since I've left.
I think it just depends on who you're working with. Quite a lot of different approaches. Some know exactly what they want and what works for them. It might be more traditional, it might not be particularly creative, but if it works for them, that's what they want. Others want to do things that are more, doesn't actually showcase or show off the property as such. It's just about capturing some beautiful visuals for Instagram to try and generate more following and more interest, which then will then go into the company. So they're building brand identity just as much as they're showcasing properties. Again, it just depends on who you're working with. Some people are more forward thinking than others. And again, I don't think it's a case of they're right and they're wrong, because it's all different. If it works for them, it works for them. That's the way they want to do it. I think we are almost like, if it's a football team or rugby team or NFL team, whatever team it is what kind of play would suit your team? What are you looking for? Are you looking for somebody creative? Are you looking for somebody who can paint by numbers? and that the kind of person who'll fit your team. You need to get the right person in. Back to what you said though before about how I like to do things. I do it slightly different from what you do, where pretty much shoot it all unless it's a kind of presenter piece of the camera. I'll shoot that. Obviously, I'm in the UK, so I'll shoot that at 25 frames. But the rest of the property tour and the visuals that I'm going to get are going to be in 50 frames. Obviously, so it's at half speed, so it's slowed down, so that helps. Makes it look more smooth. It makes it have more of a classic kind of look. And again, if I want to speed ramp it, there's more frames there to get a smoother speed ramp. In terms of lenses and cameras, well, I use this predominantly. This is my FX30. Again, even though it's an APS-C Super 35 camera, I sing the praises of this. I think it's a fantastic little camera, especially for the price, with all the cinematic features. And because that, again, it's much more affordable. This is the 11mm, and this is a 1.8. It comes to like £400 UK. I don't know what it is in dollars. You probably know more than me. But obviously with the crop sensor, then it's about a 16mm, which is still pretty wide. So I think having a wide lens when you're shooting any kind of property or real estate is crucial. You can get more of the room in shot. It looks smoother because it's wider, especially when you're pairing that with a nice slow 50 frames look. I think that captures the beauty a little bit more. And I edit in DaVinci Resolve, which I started because of you, Tom. Obviously, you was for the longest time saying you need to get over Premiere. Just give it a try. You'll enjoy it. You'll find it better than I do. And the stabilization mode on that, you can pair the You have the stabilization. You have the active stabilization built in on this. You have 50 frames. You've got a nice wide lens. Between all them things combined, you're going to get some really beautiful footage. So again, it depends what the client wants, but I won't show every room in the house. I will show the rooms that I will believe will sell that property. I'll start off with a nice exterior shot. This is when it comes to the editing process. If it's something which would benefit from a drone, I'll use the drone. But again, if it's on like a busy terrace street in, say, Liverpool, where you're from, at times the drone shows up too much, and it shows up things that you don't necessarily want to advertise. It could be a dodgy roof. It could show that it's only a little backyard, which isn't particularly appealing. The last thing you want to do is put off people. You want to do the opposite. You want to entice them. But if it's suitable for a drone, but I think the first thing is not all properties are suitable for drones. And again, you got to, is it safe? Is it the right thing to do to use a drone on this particular property? So I'll do some external shots. I like the push in or the slow movement to reveal the room first, to give context of what room I'm going to go into. I'll try and get the wide shot with some movement of the room in slow motion. If a speed ramp is applicable and it adds to it, I can do that. But again, these days I see speed ramps used on every other shot.
I try to limit it to 2 max for a 2-minute video.
Yeah, I don't like them. Some can be effective and some can't. You can still, if you move around with the gimbal, you can still capture the move, and it's accentuated. Sorry, with the speed ramp. Sometimes it's like that, even when you try and smooth it out. So it's not always great to ramp everything, especially when you're expected to move kind of in and out round the walls, and sometimes the gimbal isn't responding as quickly as you need it to, or it's responding too quick. So I think it's a time and place for speed ramps. But then every room I'll try and get the wide shot, I'll try and be creative, and I'll pick a couple of different features in the room, what I think stand out, and really add to it to really sell that property. Every house has usually got 2 to 3 main feature rooms that I'll heavily focus on. They could have a nice open plan back kitchen with an island, what could have really nice views over a garden. Then I know that's something I need to focus on, because that's what will entice people to buy it. If it's a room with very little going on, I'll show it, but I won't bang on about it, because the footage will all looks very, very similar, because it could be a standard kind of living room lounge with just a couple of sofas in, a television, a few pictures on the walls. There's not so much you can do with that, so don't focus on that. If there's nothing there to sell the property, don't focus on it. I'll do stair shots. Maybe it's a presenter going upstairs, just to show people visually that the next few rooms that you're going to see are going to be upstairs if it's a 2-bed house. And again, the same process. If they've got a particularly nice bathroom, I'll focus on that and show it. Again, push-in shots, slow shots, whips, movements. If there's a presenter involved, I might show the presenter actually interacting with something. They might be judging up, like moving up some flowers or walking up the stairs, just to kind of add context and shift the focus to them rather than the property. And then I tell the story. I'll move through the house. Then at the end of it, a goodbye shot again with the drone. If it's suitable, I'm moving away from the property. The other thing is these days, I don't know if you've had to consider this, is what platform you're shooting for. Meaning you could be shooting for a website or YouTube. It changes your aspect ratio than if you're asked to shoot for, say, Instagram, where you in a vertical. If you're shooting vertically, which then changes how you shoot it and also the look of it as well. Have you found anything about that, shooting in different aspect ratios?
I always shoot for the aspect ratio that I deliver in is a cinematic aspect ratio. It's a 3840 by 1706. That's what I'll deliver with, unless they ask for anything different. And then if we're doing social media content, I'll shoot that in portrait mode on the camera. I'll just turn the camera and shoot it in portrait mode for social media content. But all of the property filming, from what I've found, the realtors they want to use it for the website primarily, and then it gets repurposed for social media and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts distribution. So what I'll do is I'll just crop it in the edit to do that rather than shooting it all again twice with that aspect ratio, because I find with the really wide shots that I'm doing at 17mm, you will get like the main features of the property and stuff, and I can always repurpose the edit and throw another shot in of a different angle if you miss, say, a certain feature.
Yeah, I for real estate, we're trying to show scale of rooms. I'm not a fan of vertical, but again, one of the companies that I'm working for, that the main form of delivery is vertical, which again it changes how I shoot. It's just a different look. So if that's what they want, then obviously we have to deliver on that. Speaking of which, as well, one thing that I also have, well, I'll show you this bit thing first. Actually, do you do much in terms of audio?
Yeah, we do a lot over here. It's a lot more compared to what I was doing at home. It's a lot more realtors walking us through the properties and talking about stuff. And for that, I use a Tascam DR10L.
I use these. These are the latest ones, the Rode Wireless Pros. The 32-bit float, obviously like the device that you've named in as well, which is fantastic. It doesn't matter if they're raising the voice or if the voice is low. You can lift the volume, you can lower the volume, and it's never going to peak. It's never going to hit the bass where you just get so much noise floor. It's so flexible. I find these are fantastic. You can record to the actual device, or you can just obviously plug it into your camera through the mini jack on the side. Again, like I said, it's 32-bit float. Put them on with a lav. I'll set them up. I'll make sure if they've got long hair, the hair's off there. I'll position the microphone. I'll work with them on that to make sure it doesn't bounce off or hit anything. But again, in Resolve now with the voice isolation feature and the voice leveling feature, that compared with a 32-bit float recording, it makes life easy.
I think a good thing as well, if you don't have access to those tools, and DaVinci is free, but you don't get the voice isolate if you're on the free version, a good tool to use is Adobe Podcast. I know you've been on there and seen that, but you can do a certain amount of minutes for free each day. And I think if you just put your audio through that and just look at how good of a cleanup it can do, it's amazing. If you compare that to what we were having to deal with a couple of years ago with like the 80D and the Rode Mic Pro on the top, it has come so far with 32-bit float audio, because I used to stress about audio and need headphones all the time, especially for weddings, whereas now I can just plug in my Tascam X8 and just let it roll, stick on my DR10L and just let it roll, not worry about it whatsoever, because I know it's gonna perform and I don't need to worry about it. That's the one thing I've found since we've started, is that filmmaking's gotten easier from a technical aspect. Say, for example, when we were shooting in S-Cinetone, not S-Cinetone, when we were shooting in what was it used to be called? There was a non-flat
Hybrid log gamma.
Yeah, hybrid log gamma or Cine 4. We used to shoot in stuff like that.
Yeah.
Very, very unforgiving 8-bit footage that you needed to nail every time. Whereas now it's a bit easier with S-Log3, and then it gets a bit easier with 32-bit float, and then it gets easier with stabilization and voice isolate and AI tools, and there's a lot that sort of lets you focus on the creativity without having to worry about the technicalities. Same with like maybe before you would need the sound operator or like a drone operator or like a helicopter to get some of these shots, but it's just so much easier these days.
Yeah, I think the equipment needs to be your colleague. It needs to be a reliable colleague when it's out there. If you're a solo shooter, autofocus, good autofocus is invaluable. Having equipment that is reliable and can capture clean audio. If it gets to the point where you can trust it, where you don't have to check it on headphones, you're confident that it will get it. If it's a 32-bit float, then it takes that pressure off, that when you get back to the edit, you've got it, it's clean. It just makes life so much easier. Would you shoot a property in a log, or would you shoot it in one of the other profiles?
Definitely log. I would never shoot it in a different profile, just because you're always going to be dealing with situations where you need high dynamic range. Because I don't know of. I mean, the only time I wouldn't is if you were doing a day to night transition and you were shooting, say, at night, and you had some features that you need to show with lights and stuff. Then you don't need the dynamic range, so I would shoot an S-Cinetone for that. But for 99% of the property shoots that I do or you do, you're probably going to need log, just because of the outside window. It's going to be so much brighter outside compared to inside, even on a cloudy day. So you're going to need log for that.
I also think as well, like again, working with different companies, they want different looks. One might want a true to life look, so I grade it so that red looks like the red of that piece of furniture when I shot it. That is, it mirrors what you would see if you were in that property. Others, they want more of a stylistic grade. They want something what has more. It could be like a teal and orange look. It could be something that's more cinematic. It's not necessarily an accurate portrayal of what it would look like if you were in that place, but they're not bothered about that. They want it to look a certain way.
Yeah.
Because they're creating a brand image, and to them that's more important than capturing the colours of what they'd actually look like if you were in that property. If you're in a log profile, very flat profile, whether you're building your own grade or you're using a LUT, you then can completely change the look of the colours on the profile on your image. So it gives you that flexibility in post-production. And again, when you're working with clients who might not necessarily know what they want, or when they see it, then they're not okay with it, you've still got the flexibility to remove your grading and almost start again to try and grade to how they want it.
So if I gave you £2,000 to work with, what would you buy for real estate shooting?
What? That's for everything.
Everything. You got 2,000 to work with.
Well, the things that I would want, and this is not getting specifics, I'd need some degree of sound recording.
Yeah.
So I think for real estate, I think I'd go with a lavalier or a lav mic, because obviously I'm going to get different angles of shots. I'm not going to have a sound guy with me to follow around with a shotgun or boom mic. So I'd go with a lavalier mic. So then they could move around freely in around the property, and it wouldn't, and the sound would be picked up accordingly. I'd get a gimbal. I don't necessarily know which gimbal I'd get. I'd get one that was cheap and reliable to fit within that budget. And again, I get not going into specifics, some of the other Sony cameras that they brought out these days do have 10-bit. They have quite a high dynamic range. They do shoot S-Log3. And they're quite good cameras. So if I think under £2,000, I think I could spend £1,000, just a bit over £1,000 on. I can't think of it. Like, is it the A660 or something like that?
A6400. Yeah, that doesn't have a 10-bit though.
There's another one that does though. What is not much more than 1,000. Again, without looking specifics, I wouldn't know, but I'd probably spend just over 1,000 on that. I could get away with, say, the Rode wireless ones, and you could probably pick them up for like around about 100 now. And then I buy a gimbal, but I wouldn't buy the latest gimbal. I'd buy one that's a few iterations back what could still do a job. I don't know what I could pick up the Ronin S now, but even though I don't have a Ronin S anymore and I moved on from it, I could have a Ronin S right now, stick it on the back, stick it on a gimbal, and I could shoot real estate.
Yeah.
Sorry, I could stick a camera on the Ronin S and I could shoot real estate fine. It would do the job for me. It's got the movement, the stabilization for what I'd require, even though now it's probably 6 years old, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
Something
sense.
like that. 5 years old, something like that. Again with cameras, the A7 III, did that shoot 10-bit?
No, that was 8-bit.
You could even shoot 8-bit hyperlog gamma. And if you know what you're doing with your exposure, yeah, you've not got the same levels of dynamic range as what you would in log, but you can still do it.
You've just got to nail it. You've got to nail your exposure. There's no forgiveness. So, I think what I would do, I would see if I could try and find an FX30 secondhand.
You currently, yeah, you might be able to get one then for around about that price. Maybe you could do it. Maybe you can get an FX30 because you can get one for about 1314. Gives you 600 quid left to play with. Yeah, maybe with that you could probably pick up. And also as well, something else you've not
Lens.
considered is, yeah, but again, if you get something like an FX30, you get you're going down the Super 35 APS-C route. Well, the advantage to that is, yeah, it's a smaller sensor, and you are more challenged when it comes to low light. They're a lot cheaper to buy than a full frame lens.
Well, that's what I mean. Say you picked up an FX30 for £1,200, then you've got what, 800 to play with. I would spend 200 on a Tascam DR10L, which is £200, so we're at 1.4. Then I would spend about £300 on an RS gimbal, so maybe the Ronin RS3 you can get for £300. So then what are we on the 1.7? So then we've got £300 left. I would allocate that to maybe a second-hand 11mm lens like what you've got, and then you're there. You've got it. You've got good kit. You got kit that's going to do 4K shooting in 10-bit, good audio, and it's going to last for quite a while.
Yeah, you could do it. I mean, like, look at the kit. I've got it here now. This is, and I like it firstly because it's just a small little bag. This is the DJI RSC2, so it's not the full one. They brought out a smaller version, but I knew I was only going to be flying small cameras on it. I have actually had my FX6 on it, and it went well. I put the FX6 on it. I stripped it all down, just put a little screen on the back of it. That's all I had. And I got away with it. So even though it might not recommend in the payload, it can be done. And honestly, I find it great. I've got this, which I find super good. I don't know if you've got anything like this. It's just the additional handle clamp on the back where I can just put it on, which gives me a second grip.
What I do, I have something similar to that. I have mine almost transformed into a Ronin M. I have two handles on the side, and I can turn it that way. I find that's way more intuitive for property shooting than having the stick configuration.
Do you know what? I actually found it the other way around, where I have them, by the way. I have the two handles what you can on the side and try and move it. For me, I don't know, it felt a little bit unnatural. To have it like that. So I have actually got them, but I don't use them. I took them out for a few shoots. It's like, I'm not feeling this. It's just not, I don't know. It just didn't feel right to me. It just wasn't in my movement. But also something that I think works really well for me. Have you used the motion and control app for Sony?
Yeah. I have actually.
I honestly, I find it really good. It allows you to use your mobile phone as a second screen, and I use that quite a lot. So this is super easy. It's small, it's compact. I put the handle on the back. I won't build it up all today. And obviously this then is the holder, which I can just slide onto there. I can just very easily clip it onto there. And then when I clip it on, my phone goes here on that way. So then I've got the monitor of the camera, and I've got a larger monitor, which is mobile phone. It can be a little bit laggy at times, which can be a bit of a pain. But this is super light because it's the smaller one. It's the RSC2. It's not even It's not even the 3R. I think they're up to the 4 now, so it's a couple of iterations old.
Yeah.
But like I said in a previous conversation we had, it's this compared with a super light lens. It makes the whole thing a super light, compact, and very useful tool for me for shooting real estate.
Interesting. My setup's nearly identical. I have the gimbal that's a little bit bigger, and I don't have the phone mount on there. I just use the screen and stuff. Does yours have the the button on the back that lets you control like aperture or shutter speed?
Yeah, it's got side dial. It's got a dial there on the back as well, so you can map it to whatever you want it to do. The thing is, why I really like it's coming a bit later. The thing that I really like about the motion control thing as well is it allows functionality such as touch functionality,
Yeah.
stop,
Yeah.
start, record functionality. So it works a little bit more than just standard monitor. It's not as smooth as standard monitor because obviously it's not wired, so it can lag on occasion.
Yeah.
But I've also got the other monitor on the back of the camera. But again, you can't always trust that, especially if you're in a bright environment. I do often do take a monitor with me just in case, which I will then connect to the top of this. So that's like that. So the monitor's there, so I can see it pretty clearly.
Yeah.
But if I can get away with not, I'll get away with not having that on because it's just something else. Sometimes the cable gets in the way. You're spinning it around. The cables touch the camera. It can spin around the gimbal if I've hit the wrong button or something crazy like that. So that I've had many different kind of builds on the gimbal for real estate, but this is the one that I feel happiest with.
Yeah, that's good. So, going on from that, what have you got coming up this week?
Well, I've got a few different meetings actually. I'm also shooting, in the process of shooting 2 documentaries and in discussion to shoot a third one. And the reason why I've got 3 documentaries ongoing is because they're slow going. One, the main people involved, they're quite hard to get hold of. The main guy it was about has got such an interesting story. He is then dragging in other people to be part of it who are part of his story. They're all in the UK, especially in the north of England. They've all got decent profiles as well. They're all busy people. I've got the numbers. I've tried contacting them. The responses are far and few between. But I think when you're in that kind of world and they're doing it not because it's their job, but because they want to be part of something for somebody else, you got to be very patient with it. So 2 are going at the same time, so I've got time jumping between 2, and I filmed again with somebody called Ree Lovelace, who's the pound for pound world's strongest woman. Ree's fantastic. We were talking about working with people before. She is just somebody who's absolutely fantastic to work with. She is known for being super strong. Obviously, she's the pound for pound strongest woman in the world. She's done things that are just incredible feats. But for me, it's also because she's super intelligent. She gets it. She's very business savvy. Her head's screwed on. She knows what she wants. And her winning mentality, what has got to be the world's strongest woman, pound for pound, she's translated into business. So she allows me to be creative when I work with her and I shoot for her. And she's another person that I'm going to discuss doing a documentary with because her story is not just about being physically strong. I had a conversation with her, it's got so many different levels to it. And it's so interesting, engaging. And I've worked with her a lot. And she's somebody who will allow me enough creative freedom because she trusts me to deliver on it. And I did another little project for her the other day. I don't know if you saw any of it, but again, just purely drone. We took it out onto the beach and filmed her on a horse and was getting some content footage for her before she wants something else. And I graded it to almost look like a Midwestern American day to evening kind of shoot. And she loved it and I liked it. It's always enjoyable shooting with Ree. Ree is somebody who gets it. So that's what I'm doing as well. I'm carrying on with the real estate stuff. And I've actually got another project that I can't discuss too much, just a corporate shoot with another business.
Sounds interesting. I did see the stuff on the horse. It looked really cool. Was that a Blackpool?
No, not far away. St Anne's. Have you ever been to St Anne's?
No, I've not. I've heard of it though.
It's nice. It's actually nice, St Anne's. It's obviously the same coastline line as Blackpool, just a bit further down. St Anne's and Lytham and St Anne's, two beautiful places. If you get them on a sunny day, they're really nice little beach areas
Yeah.
in the northwest of England. What about yourself? What's new with Tom?
Well, I've finished the edit for the real estate stuff that we did over the weekend. I've got about 3,000 photos to go through from the wedding. I've got to go through them, cull them all. I've already sent some sneak previews, get them all cut down, and then edit through them. I've got about 3 months to deliver those, so I don't need to rush on them, but I like to get them done early because it's always, I find, good to set expectations for, say, 3 months in the future and then deliver early. So I've got that. And I'm in post-production for a few different projects. But yeah, it's a post week for me. I'm not really doing much shooting. And then the first week of June, the week after, I've got 4 wedding shoots. So just getting ready for that, going through, making sure all the equipment's all working properly still. I like to routinely test them before weddings just because things only happen once. But yeah, I'm going to be working on the website and doing all like the behind the scenes stuff, post production stuff this week. So nothing really too exciting.
Before we sign off, obviously you're doing weddings and you're doing well at weddings and they're paying the bills and everything like that. And obviously now you're moving more and more into real estate. If you could shoot whatever you wanted to shoot, what would you shoot?
I would choose weddings, and I would shoot.
Over anything. You
Yeah.
can. I mean, I don't speak between the two. Over literally, you can shoot anything you want.
Oh, anything I want. I thought you meant just what I do
Yeah.
now. It would probably
No.
be travel content. I enjoy that. I enjoy editing travel content as well. That's something that I didn't mention. I'll be doing a lot of this week. I'll be editing a lot of reels for my travel account. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy meeting new people. So I would edit and shoot a lot of stuff that's just showcasing unique locations that people wouldn't necessarily think of visiting.
And you know, I watch them. I watch them all the time on YouTube.
Yeah,
It could be places I've been like Vegas, where they're reviewing the different buffets at Vegas. I'm so sad. I'll watch them. I love them.
yeah,
But they're going around the different. This isn't great. This is more kind of your YouTube content. It's not pretty content. It doesn't take much skill. It's just literally with the camera walking around saying, "Oh, is this buffet worth it?" But yeah, I can't help it. It's just addictive viewing.
yeah. It's raw and ready, isn't it? It's like what they experience. It's like you're seeing it from a different perspective, and then when you revisit that place or you go somewhere, you bring that video up again, and you think, oh, I'll go to where they recommended, things like that. So that's the stuff I enjoy because I do enjoy just going out there with no kind of plan and then ending up in some restaurants or something like that. Like I think I told you I was in Malaysia and I accidentally sat there and ate a load of chicken feet. Didn't even know that they were chicken feet and they tasted really good as well.
Well, yeah. Well, I've had food poisoning from KFC, so can't be any worse than that.
No, it was pretty good. It wasn't food poisoning, so it was all right.
Yeah. Yeah. What I would really like to in the next couple of years is documentary style stuff. A little bit for the same reason what you've said. There's been nothing more enjoyable for me so far with the camera than meeting new people and interesting people with interesting stories and documenting that and capturing some beautiful footage to go with it and telling a story. And there's a course out there what I've considered. It's called AOD. It's a guy called Mark Bone. I love Mark Bone's work. I think he's fantastic, and his AOD course looks great. I've just not had the time to look at it properly, so see if I've got the time for it to fit into my life right now. But I'd love to do that because I do think it would help because it brings a community to get me more into that document. I'm doing documentaries already, but I'd like to take it to a bigger scale and be more collaborative and work with other people in that space. And you know what? One day, I don't know if it ever happened, I would like to work on something narrative, fictional based.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I'm the opposite of that though. I have no interest at the minute in narrative stuff, but I'd be interested to see what you make because you've told me so many good stories over the years of different narrative ideas that you've had. So I would love to see you have a crack at that.
I might do, like I said before, I might do it in some kind of YouTube way where I go through different stories and get people to contribute online to make it a community. I don't know. There's different things we can do, but that's one of the best things about what we do, and especially in the freelance world. It's yours. to shape how you want it to shape, and it's yours to do how you want it to do. If you want to do travel content and you believe there's a way of doing that and making a living, it's not even about getting rich. It's about just enjoying life.
Yeah.
And if you can do that and facilitate it through your work, then to me that's worth everything.
Yeah, it is, because you get to, like, I do feel like that when I'm doing a lot of these weddings, or when I turn up to a lot of these shoots and stuff. I think, like, it's a privilege for me to be amongst these people that I would never normally be around. Like, we were talking about the wedding that I did over the weekend. I was with a load of redneck farmers from Alberta, and they all had like Stetsons on, the cowboy hats, and walking around, and they set a bridge on fire because they were like burning rubber with the big like truck that they had and stuff like that. And I was thinking, like, I'm just this guy from Liverpool. Like, what am I doing here? I'm getting to experience this. So that's what does make it worth doing.
It's mad though, isn't it? I mean, if you went back a few years, if somebody said in a few years' time you're going to be driving around Canada shooting weddings and making a living out of it, you'd be like,
Yeah,
what?
what? Yeah, I think you were crazy, but it's
Yeah.
possible.
But I think what the good thing about that is, and the different people that I've worked with and got to know over the last few years, who have gone on and done some amazing things. I mean, we're talking about work with people like Christian Burns, of BB Mac. They're still selling out on pop world tours in the US. They've just done some kind of deal. I don't know what it is. Where Back Here Baby. They've done it for a brand. They've
Yeah,
done adverts, I think, in America now, where they've changed the words. Now they're selling a product. Tom Aspinall, who's now the UFC interim heavyweight champion, and many believe he's the best heavyweight in the world. People like that, who have worked with and communicated with and got to know. It's just, but what that does is it provides faith, because nobody can tell me that things can't happen. If somebody said to me like, "Oh, in the next 10 years you'll do something with, I don't know, whoever it might be," and whether it's unrealistic as it might sound or feel right now, I'm like, well, I've worked with these people in the past and that happened. So who's to say that can't happen again? There's nobody to say what can and can't happen, because it's already been proven that things have happened what I never thought would.
no, exactly. I'm definitely with you on that one. Like you were saying just then, when we met Tom Aspinall, we interviewed him. That was like, he wasn't as famous as he is now. Obviously, then he's blew up since then, and it's so strange to hear other people talk about him and think like we've actually interviewed him. You know what I mean? It's a strange thing, and it's a privilege, because we get to meet with like some of the most amazing, inspiring people across the world.
Yeah, I texted him and wished him all the best luck before his last fight where he won the interim belt, and he replied, he's a really nice guy. He's a really down to earth, nice guy. He just happens to be incredibly tough, incredibly hard, and an amazing fighter with a high IQ. And he's from the other side of the same town as me. All these people, they've got an amazing attitude, that they've gone out and done it. They've got this like a why not attitude. And it's like you said, a good word to describe it is privilege. It's been a privilege to work and get to know these people. Josh Taylor's got a fight this weekend, and he was a great guy for us. He's an incredible former champion who's looking to become a champion again in the near future in boxing. And I've spent time with Josh.
Yeah,
Danny Roberts.
exactly. Yeah, we spent a week with
Yeah,
him in Vegas. That was crazy.
yeah, and I've spent lots with him, and I still communicate with Dan. He's an unbelievable great guy, and I know he's looking to get on the Manchester card, um, in June, July, I think it is, the UFC
Yeah,
card. Don't know if that's his last fight. It might be, but another great guy. It opens doors, and you end up,
yeah.
in the UFC in Vegas. Just
Yeah, I just couldn't believe that. Like we were there. I was out with it's just the stuff around the filmmaking as well, because obviously we were there. I was there for the week, and
yeah,
we went out and and had a big party in Vegas with like the UFC roster, and all the fighters were there and stuff, and you're just there, just like you have that sort of imposter syndrome, like, what am I doing here? How did I manage to get myself here? You know what I mean? It's just crazy.
yeah. But that's it. Just enjoy it, because it's you are there, and you managed to have an experience what other people won't get to have, who would love to have that experience.
Yeah,
And it's because of making contacts and working with different people and having the guts to when at the time you'd been in Vancouver for like all of 2 minutes when I made the call to you and let you know I was going to be in Vegas. You could have it wouldn't have been no crime for you to say, look, David, I've only just got here. I can't be leaving. But it's that attitude of like, well, the opportunity's there, so I'm gonna go and do it.
It was literally
And you went down there and you've got it.
It was the day after, wasn't it? It was like for the context,
Yeah.
I'd moved country, and then I landed, and then the day after we landed, I flew to Vegas to go and see you and be with the UFC. The day after moving countries, which is nuts when you think about it now.
But nuts in a good way because
In a
you've got
good
some
way.
experience.
Yeah.
And I do believe I'm very very confident that even if it's this year or next year, other doors will open like that one, and we'll laugh about it and we'll say like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. We're here again."
Yeah.
But it'll come to the point where we'll be comfortable with it and we'll just say like, "Yeah, it's happening," but not in an arrogant way. It's happening though because we've facilitated it, and
Yeah, you
this
put
is
yourself
what
in that
it's
position.
meant to be. Yeah, this is what it's always meant to be. So, whereas the initial conversation might have been a little bit more dour about having trouble with filmmaking, I also like to balance it and just say it's the best.
Oh yeah, I'm so thankful for it. And the doors it opens, the people you meet, and all that stuff. It is like the good definitely outweighs the struggles.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And there are struggles. There's financial struggles. There's there's fear of not being good enough. Um, Imposter syndrome, like you mentioned before. There's there's so many worries, but if you let them get on top of you, then
Yeah.
you're gonna lose. Just don't let it. Yeah, keep trying, keep doing what you can, but also understand that if there are any kind of days where you do take that L, it's okay. You're gonna get back up again, and you're gonna carry on.
Exactly.
Yeah. On that positive note, Tom, how about we catch up next week for another great episode of The Camera Guys?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see each other next week. See where we get on.
Brilliant, brilliant. And we'll, in between now and then, we'll come up with a great topic for next week. I'd like to talk, but if we don't, one thing that I'd like to talk about is my adventure in Norway.
Oh yeah, I'd love to know more about that. About you shooting the strongman.
We'll do that then. We'll do that then. Do
Yeah.
that. Right, Tom.
Catch you
next
later.
week.
See you later.